Hi besties, welcome back to my channel, or hi, my name is Stacy if you're new here. So today's video is really exciting because I picked up the whole ROM&ND MILK GROCERY collection. Well, all the makeup products that came out in this collection. So first off we have the palette, which is the shade 09 Dreamy Lilac Garden. Super pretty mauvey nude palette. Then we also have 3 new Dewyful water tints and 2 new Juicy Lasting tints. So if you want to see me try everything on my face to get this look today, as well as lip swatches, hand swatches, and also comparisons at the end to a lot of other ROM&ND lip tints or other K-beauty lip tints that I think might be similar, then just keep on watching. I swatched so many lip tints for this video, but before we get into it, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see more content like this because it really helps out my channel and it would really mean a lot to me. And let's just get right into the video. Here's a look at the whole palette together. I'm gonna try to use almost all the colors. So I'm gonna go in with this peachy nude shade first and just take that as a base shade all over the crease. And then I'm gonna take this baby pink shade, which is really pretty. This is like a cherry blossom baby pink. So now I just mixed the peachy one and the pink one, and I'm putting it on the bottom lash line to add something there. But you can see the color actually builds up, because at first the pink wasn't showing up, but now there's definitely like a pinky tinge. So they seem to be buildable. Okay, next up I'm gonna use these 3 shades. I'm just gonna mix them because they're kind of similar, these 3. They just vary kind of in like the warmth and the depth a little bit. So yeah, this palette is a very like natural palette. So if you like natural muted makeup, I think you'll like this. Yeah, you can see how there is color pigment, but it's not super deep. But this is actually the perfect level of depth, I would say, like for me, like with darker shades, because I don't like adding too much depth and smokiness. So this is like just enough to kind of define my eyes without making it too dark. Also, I really like the ROM&ND matte formula. It's very smooth. It's like a very fine silky powder. So actually these shadows are pretty workable. You could build up the darker shadows as well, but I like that it starts off not too deep. And I'm also going to add some more of this more deep purple shade on the bottom lash line, like in this outer corner here, just to add that depth. Okay, next up I'm going to go into the shimmers. So there are these 3 shimmers right here, and these 2 are more of a subtle pearl, whereas this one is more glittery, but it's a glitter topper. So I'm going to first start off with this pink one. I don't know if the sheen is showing up super well on camera, because it's kind of subtle, but it has like a duochrome effect to it. It's kind of like this white chrome with holographic pink shift. Just gives like a subtle chrome to the eyelids. I'm just using this as an all-over shimmer color, but I will say that it's quite subtle, like it's not super high shine, so just be aware of that. But it does add a nice reflectiveness. So then we're gonna go into this one, and it has like this marbled effect in it. It's a little bit blurry already because I already played with this shade, but it's actually quite stiff, so the marbled effect isn't disappearing as quickly as I thought it would, but it still looks quite pretty. So anyways, then I'm just tapping this along the center of the eyelid for some extra sparkle. I actually really like this shade, but it's very subtle, and the glitter particles are very small. Hopefully you guys can see the difference between this one and this one. Yeah, this is probably my favorite shade in the palette. If you've been following me, you're probably not surprised because I am a glitter lover. This is also like a sheer white topper with like holographic pink, purple glitters, but it's mostly sheer. So it's more like a transformer shade, but I really like that it gives that kind of like glittery, sparkly effect. And I'm pretty sure they intended for it to be a topper, like, so it's not gonna be the most high impact. See this pearlescence. So I'm just kind of tapping that all over actually. And then I want to contour my egg cell, so I'm going to use this shade. It's kind of like a mauvey taupe color. I'm just going to lightly contour the egg cell under this eye bag right here. So I prefer to use like more cool tone shades like this. Gives it more of a contoured effect. You can see how the effect is actually pretty subtle. I'm going to take this tiny brush, and I got this brush for free with this palette because they're doing like a promotion, and I'm gonna take this champagne shimmer shade. It's also very subtle. Use that to highlight my egg cell. So this is actually a great highlighting shade because it's very natural, and you can see how it immediately like puffs up my eye more. So if you don't naturally have an egg cell, if you have to draw it on, this actually makes it the most realistic. So you can see how my under eyes are emphasized, but they don't look too drawn on. So I've actually used every shade in this palette except for this deepest shade, which we're going to use as a shadow liner. And I like that even though this is like a milky toned palette, they did include like a deeper eyelining shade. It is on the lighter side of eyelining shades, but I would say it's deep enough to actually line your eyes, because a lot of these milky toned palettes tend to lack an eyeliner blending shade, but it's quite a subtle liner. I like that. I think this was the perfect type of shade to include in this palette. Not so deep that it's gonna look stark against the light shadows that we have going on. And it also has a more like cool undertone, so it matches the rest of the eye makeup. Okay, so that's actually the eyeshadow all done. So I'm gonna go off camera and do my mascara really quick, and then I'll be right back to show you the finished eye look. Okay, so now I'm back with the mascara all done. So here's the eyes all finished. So it's very subtle and it has like a muted pinky lavender look to it. That's if you use like all of the shades in the palette. You could make it a little bit more neutral if you use like the warmer tones in here. So actually, because I feel like I want a little bit more sparkle, I'm gonna go into this Urban Decay Heavy Metal Glitter Liner, and this is in the shade Grind. And I got this recently and it's so pretty. This shade is also really popular in Korea because I saw a lot of Korean YouTubers talking about this. I showed you guys the finished eye look first before I added this, so you can see what just the palette would look like, but this is what the palette looks like with glitter. So cute. What can I say? I'm in love. Like, it's such a pretty holographic pink too. It's actually not too crazy of a color. Like, it's still very sheer and translucent, so I feel like this glitter will look good with any more pinky toned eye looks. Like, you can see how that makes my eyes just pop so much more. And I'm gonna put a little bit on this inner corner here. Okay, so that's all the extra glitter that I'm adding, and I feel like it just makes this look sparkle all that much more. So anyways, now I'm gonna zoom you guys out so we can do some lip swatches. Okay, so I just removed the lip gloss I had on so we can start trying out these new lip tints. First I'm gonna cover my lip edges, and I'm gonna start off with the new Dewyful water tints. So the first new shade is Cotton Melba. Looks like this. And the packaging looks the same for all three, but the text matches the color inside. So this is what that shade looks like. It's actually really pretty. I think it would look best on spring light tones or just spring warm tones in general. So that's with one layer, and these are quite sheer on the first layer, but you can definitely build up the pigment. You can see how this shade is quite light in general, but I love it. I think it's the perfect peachy shade because it's also not too orange, and it's like light and bright enough, and it just like kind of brightens my complexion. For any of your warm tone peachy looks, I think it's stunning. So let's show you up close. And you can see as I remove them, they do leave a slight stain. So I'm concealing my lips before each application so it's not affected by the previous one, since these do stain a little. And now we have the shade 10 Murmur Pink in the Dewyful water tint. And this is like a Barbie pink. This is what Murmur Pink looks like. This definitely goes with the makeup better, and I would say it suits summer cool light tones. It's definitely very cool tone. You need to like these types of very light baby doll pink colors. I think it's surprisingly wearable for the type of shade it is. Like, these were the types of colors I really liked this spring. I just was really into like the pastel Barbie pink vibes. And here's it close up. It's also pretty hard to find cool tone pinks that are this cool tone. Normally they still are a little bit more neutral than this, but this has like a very blue undertone to it without leaning purple. I also recommend concealing your lips to kind of show the true color better because these shades are very light tone and also sheer, so it will be affected by the color of your actual lips, especially if they're like very deep. So that's just a tip if you find that like shades always darken on your lips. So now we have the shade 11 Lilac Cream. And this is my favorite shade out of the new ones that were released. Okay, so this is the Lilac Cream shade, and I think this shade goes the best with the whole eye makeup. Like, is this not the prettiest lilac pink shade? But it's also very muted. So it's not as like bright and neon as the Murmur Pink, but this is just like a nude lilac, which is pretty hard to find, and I don't think I own any shade quite like this. So that's why it's my favorite, and I love purpley type shades. So here is it up close. Okay, now onto the Juicy Lasting Tints, which are ROM&Nd's most popular line of tints. This is kind of like their hero product that like shot them to fame. First up, we have number 28, Bare Fig. You can see the packaging. And these Juicy Lasting tints are a bit more opaque than the Dewyful water tints. Okay, so this is the Bare Fig shade, and it's actually very purple. It's essentially a purple shade. I feel like a lot of brands will come out with like a plum or something, so this is like that type of shade. This is great for like winter cool tones, maybe summer mute tones, but definitely more on the winter side because it's a little bit deeper. I would probably choose to use this as a point color, like in the center of a gradient lip, because it's quite purple and a little bit deeper than what I usually go for. I still think it's really pretty. It's definitely for true cool tones though, because the purple undertone is very strong. So I don't think that warm tone people would like this. And here's it up close. And this is also called Bear Fig because it was inspired by their two really popular shades called Bear Grape and Fig Fig, which I'll show in the swatch comparisons later in this video. Okay, and lastly we have the shade number 29, Papaya Jam. So this is for my warm tone girlies out there. You can see it's quite an orangey papaya shade, but I actually surprisingly like it because normally I don't like super warm tone shades. There's something about it that gives it like a wearability to like a person who likes more neutral to cool shades. I think because it has like a creaminess in the undertone. It's not too deep or brown. I don't know, I just really like it for an orangey shade. Here's the shade close up. Also, the staining in my lips may be making it look slightly more cool tone than it is, but I tried to conceal it. So I really like using this as a point color as well. Now let's get into the swatches and comparisons. For this portion of the video, I have a gradient lip with Lilac Cream and Bear Fig in the center. Okay, so I just swatched the whole palette on my hand so you can kind of see what the shades look like all together. You can see this is the really sparkly shade, and then the other shimmers are just not super shiny. Overall, it's a very muted, slightly lavender leaning color story, but it's not too purple actually. There's some quite neutral tones in here and like more rosier tones. So you can see that this is a very good daily palette for cool tones. Especially I would recommend this for summer mute cool tones. And because all the shades are very natural, very subtle, they'll give you some subtle definition and some subtle sparkle, but it's nothing too crazy. And it just gives a really easy everyday look. So I don't have any ROM&ND palettes to compare this to. The closest one is the Peony Nude Garden, but I actually don't own that one yet. But judging from pictures, this Dreamy Lilac Garden is more muted in tone, whereas the Peony Nude one is lighter and more pastel. And then for cool tone ROM&ND palettes, I also have this Berry Fuchsia Garden, which came out for this summer as well. And you can see there's not really a comparison here. The Berry Fuchsia one is just this one turned up a lot in terms of saturation. It's just a lot brighter, it's more fun for summer. And also the shimmers are a lot more glamorous. So I actually like the shimmers in this palette better, but I like the shades and the tones of the mattes in this palette better. So that's kind of the differences. Here's a comparison to the Peri Para Muteful Rose palette. So hopefully you guys can see that the Peri Para one is actually a little bit more neutral in tone. It's not quite as purple in undertone, but I feel like the vibes of these palettes are really similar also because they're on the more natural side. They don't have any shades that are too deep, but they do have some good like contouring shades. And then generally speaking, the shimmers and sparkles are also on the more subtle side. But actually the Peri Para ones are a little bit more chunky and sparkly. But yeah, these are the two that I thought were the most close out of my collection. So yeah, actually this new ROM&ND Dreamy Lilac Garden is pretty unique in my collection because it leans the coolest out of all the like neutral mauvey cool tone palettes that I have, while still not being a straight up like lavender or purple palette, and also it's not as saturated as some of the other purple palettes as well. Okay, next up we have the lip tint comparisons. So I'm going to start off with the Cotton Melba shade. Comparing within the ROM&ND Dewyful water tint line, we have the shade In Coral. So that's the difference there. This is Cotton Melba and this is In Coral. In Coral is deeper and more orange, and Cotton Melba is a little bit peachier, lighter, and has a little bit more pink to it. Also, I'm going to compare it to Salty Peach from ROM&ND. Again, Salty Peach is deeper and more orange. It has more brown to it. Salty Peach and Cotton Melba. So that's all the similar ones in the Dewyful water tint line, but now I'm going to go into the Juicy Lasting tint line. This is the shade Peach Me. This is like a really old shade. So Peach Me is actually the most similar so far, but it's more saturated and kind of neon, whereas Cotton Melba is still more muted pastel. Next up I have the shade Lychee Coral. Okay, this one I wouldn't say it's similar. It's a much deeper kind of coral shade compared to Cotton Melba. So that's about it for the similar ROM&ND shades. So now I'm going to compare to some out-of-brand shades. So here we have Peri Para Ink Mood Glowy Tint, and this is in the shade 01. I think it's called Best Beige Menu. So we have the Peri Para Ink Mood Glowy Tint 01 and Cotton Melba. So again, Cotton Melba is a lot more pink, and it's like a little bit lighter and brighter. The Peri Para one is more nude. Also from Peri Para Ink Mood Glowy Tint line, I have the shade 02, Coral Influencer. So actually this one is the most similar so far. Coral Influencer and Cotton Melba. The Cotton Melba is still like a little bit lighter and it has a little bit more pink to it. And then we have the shade Pleasing from the Amuse Dew Tint line. This one is actually also quite similar. Pleasing and Cotton Melba. But again, Cotton Melba still has some slightly more pink to it. So it seems like Cotton Melba is a little bit more on the pinky side of these like corally peachy tones. It's a very light pastel peachy tone. That's still not super like neon or bright, and it's not super muted or nude either. So yeah, I really like the Cotton Melba shade. I think it's like a perfect peachy shade. Okay, next up we have the shade Murmur Pink to compare. So I just put her in the top corner like that. So first off, to compare within the ROM&ND Dewyful Water Tint line, I have the shade 05 Taffy. So you can see clearly Taffy is a lot warmer. So that's good that there's like a differentiation there, because Taffy was actually supposed to be like the cool pink of the original lineup, but you can see it's not even cool in comparison to Murmur Pink. So that's all the comparison for the Dewyful Water Tint line. Okay, so next up I have the shade 26 Very Berry Pink Juicy Lasting Tint. So this one is about the same neon and lightness as Murmur Pink, but again, it's like more peachy. Like Murmur Pink has a clearly blue-pink undertone in comparison, but these two are more similar. And then similarly, I have 27 Pink Popsicle, because these were supposed to be for summer cool light tones. So here's the shade 27 Pink Popsicle and Murmur Pink. But again, Pink Popsicle is still not as blue toned as Murmur Pink, and it's also a little bit more saturated and brighter. That's it for within ROM&ND, and now going out into other brands, we have the Peri Peri Ink Mood Glowy Tint, and this is in the shade 04 Pink Youth. This has been one of my favorite bubblegum pink shades recently. They're quite similar, but 04 Pink Youth is slightly more muted. Murmur Pink still has a little bit more neon and like blue tone to it, whereas the 04 Pink Youth is a little bit more earthy. It has a slightly nude undertone in comparison. But yeah, these two are pretty similar. Okay, next up I have Alive Pink from 3CE, and this is in their syrup layering tint line. But it's actually a lot more nude and warmer than the Murmur Pink, so not very similar. Next up we have Espoir Hey Bestie. This is from their Couture Lip Shine line. Okay, so here's Hey Bestie, and it's still lacking that kind of blue tone that Murmur Pink has. So again, Murmur Pink is cooler, but other than that, they're very similar. So Hey Bestie is really close too. And then lastly, I have the Laka Fruity Glam Tints. So first off, we have Soda. It's probably like the coolest toned baby pink that I have. This is the shade Soda. So again, this one's not super similar. Actually, this one is cooler than Murmur Pink. So we finally found one that's cooler, but yeah, not super similar. Next up, we have the shade Cold. This one is more similar to Murmur Pink, but again, it's warmer still. This one's still blue. Then we have the shade Juicy. Okay, this one is just not a comparison. It's like kind of that baby pink family, so I pulled it out, but yeah. Not similar, it's too deep, too like muted kind of. Lastly, I have the shade Ping Pong. So this one might be more similar. Okay, so this one is relatively similar, but in comparison to Murmur Pink, it's still lacking that blue undertone, so this one like looks a little bit peachy in comparison. But in terms of the brightness, they're pretty similar. The Murmur Pink is actually quite unique for a baby doll pink in terms of like how cool it is without leaning purple. The closest dupe I would say is Espoir Hey Bestie, which is this one, in comparison to Murmur Pink. But actually upon further inspection, I think Hey Bestie actually has more blue to it. So all of these, it takes a little bit of time to like fully develop into its like true color. So the Hey Bestie one actually has a bluer, like more purple undertone. Whereas Murmur Pink is a very blue pink, but it still doesn't lean purple. So it's like right before Hey Bestie in terms of like coolness. So yeah, but they're like really close. So if you have Hey Bestie, you might not want Murmur Pink. Okay, those were a pain to remove and they still stay in my hand. Let's move on to Lilac Cream. So this one is actually not as lilac as you would think from the name Lilac Cream, but it makes it more wearable. Like it doesn't really have like a blue undertone to it. It's more like just like a cool pink nude. Then the Dewyful Water Tint line, we have the shade Thulian. As you can see, it's a lot warmer and slightly deeper. Lilac Cream is a little bit lighter and brighter. Then I also brought out Bare Grape from the Juicy Lasting Tint line. There's no other ones that are similar in the Dewyful Water Tint line. But here's Bare Grape. And basically Bare Grape is a lot more nude. Like there's a lot more brown in it, whereas Lilac Cream still has a very obvious pinkiness to it. Bare Grape is just like even more desaturated. So again, they're not very similar. Okay, next up I have Hints Mood Enhancer Liquid Glow, and this is in the shade New Allure. This is New Allure. Again, turns out New Allure is actually very similar to Bare Grape. These are really similar. But again, it's more brown and nudie compared to Lilac Cream. Also not as cool as Lilac Cream. And then I have the shade Du Boksunga from the Amuse Dew Tint line, because this is like a cooler toned nude in their line, but again, it's very nudie. Looks quite peachy in comparison to Lilac Cream. We have 3CE Syrup Layering Tint Alive Pink. So here's Alive Pink, and this is supposed to be a cool tone in 3CE's family, but it's kind of warm for being a cool tone. So it's, again, it's warmer than Lilac Cream. But in terms of saturation, it's about the same. It looks almost like peachy in comparison again. And then we have this Laka Fruity Glam Tint. This is in the shade Soda. So this one was very purple, but I thought because like a Lilac Cream, it would be similar, but no. This one is very pastel. Actually, Soda is like the most unique shade I think I have, because there's no shade that's quite as like white based and just baby lavender. But anyways, so Lilac Cream is more wearable. Okay, and then also from Laka, I have the shade Dewy. So this one I didn't compare before. And again, this one is very similar to the other cool tone nudes that I tried, but more brown and muted compared to Lilac Cream. still not as lavender. It's interesting because like all of these look kind of warm tone in comparison to Lilac Cream, but these are all definitely like cool tone. And then lastly we have my baby, which is Peri Para Ink Mood Glowy Tint in the shade 04 Pink Youth. Okay, this one is the most similar in terms of like being the most pinky. Like it's not as brown as the other nudes, but it's a little bit brighter, like it has a little bit more neon to it, and it's still not as cool toned as Lilac Cream. Here's Pink Youth, and you can see how it looks a lot more pink. And then Lilac Cream has that slight more purpley tinge to it. As I said before, Lilac Cream, I would say it's pretty unique. Like there's not a close enough dupe in my collection, in my opinion. And also keep in mind that things tend to look different on the lips, but I feel like these hand swatches might be a little bit helpful to you, especially if you already own some of these shades. So if you like these kind of cool tone purple nudie lips, I think you'll really like Lilac Cream, and it's still unique within this color family. Okay, next up we have the shade Bare Fig, which I think a lot of people will be looking forward to, since it's supposed to be like an amalgamation of two of their most popular shades. So here's Bare Fig by itself, and then I'm gonna go with Bare Grape. So that's Bare Fig and that's Bare Grape. So Bare Grape is more nudie, more brown. Bare Fig definitely has a stronger purple undertone and it's more saturated and slightly deeper. And then we have Fig Fig. These are both from the ROM&ND Juicy Lasting Tint line. So here's Fig Fig. So as you can see, Fig Fig and Bare Grape are actually pretty similar to each other, but Fig Fig is like deeper and a little bit warmer actually. So what I would say is Bare Fig is like the more purple version of Fig Fig, since these two are more similar in like their depth and saturation. Bare Fig is a lot more cool tone and Fig Fig is warm tone in comparison. Even though Fig Fig is like supposed to be a cool toned color, so that just gives you an idea of how like purple Bare Fig is. Definitely there's no dupes between these three, and I'm not really sure why they named it that, because it's basically a lot more purple than both of these. Like you would think that it would just be like mixing the two, but it's not. It's just like a different thing. Also in the ROM&ND line, but these are in the Dewyful water tints. We have Tulian again. So this one's actually a lot warmer and pinker in comparison. Not really dupe worthy. And then I also have Berry Divine. So I pulled a lot more like berry shades, since Bare Fig has a very strong purple undertone. That's Berry Divine. So actually Berry Divine kind of has more brown and red to it than Bare Fig does. I have a 3C Syrup Layering Tint in the shade Grapeful. It's just interesting because a lot of these more grape colors are still less purple than Bare Fig. So this is Grapeful. Again, it's like more reddish brown in comparison. And then I have the Peri Para Ink Mood Glowy Tint in the shade 06 Plum Update. And in comparison, Plum Update is actually brighter. It kind of has like this bright pink quality to it, whereas Bare Fig has this muted, almost like grayish tinge that Plum Update doesn't have. I also forgot this ROM&ND one. So this is in their Blasting Water tint line, and this is in the shade Purple Shower. So this is Purple Shower. Again, not as like purpley blue leaning as Bare Fig. Hopefully you guys can see that. Purple Shower, Bare Fig. So again, even though they're all in the same color family, there's really no dupes here for Bare Fig. It's just the most purple and kind of like a muted purple. If you like really cool toned lips, or if you like purple looks, you might like this. Okay, finally onto the last lip. So we have Papaya Jam, and it's kind of like a milky nude orange. Sticking with the Juicy Lasting Tint line, we have the shade Nudie Peanut. So this is Nudie Peanut and this is Papaya Jam. But Papaya Jam has a little bit more pink to it. Like there's kind of a more muted quality to Papaya Jam, whereas Nudie Peanut is a little bit brighter and just more orange. But overall they give a very similar vibe. And then next up we have the shade Pink Pumpkin. So this is Pink Pumpkin, this is Papaya Jam. Honestly, Pink Pumpkin and Papaya Jam are very similar. I think Pink Pumpkin is the tiniest bit brighter and a little bit more pink. But anyways, next up I have the shade Jujube. Jujube is a little bit more muted and nude. It's a little bit cooler in tone as well. I also have the shade Mold Peach. This one is too nude, it's too cool tone in comparison. Next up we have Pomelo Skin. This one really very nude. So again, not similar. So we have the shade Nucademia. This is also really popular. Again, too brown, too neutral, not really like Papaya Jam at all. Now onto the Dewyful water tint line, I have the shade Salty Peach. It has a little bit more yellow to it, like it's more orange than Papaya Jam. So again, not similar. And then I also have in Coral, but again, this one is not super similar either. It's more orange and more bright than Papaya Jam. Then lastly, I have Harmony from Laka. So this is Harmony, but this one is a little bit more like tangerine-y than Papaya Jam. Again, Papaya Jam has a little bit more pink to it. So I actually like that about Papaya Jam. That's kind of what I've been saying. It's like, it's a warm tone and it has that orange, but it also has a pink in it that kind of balances it out and makes it less orange than a lot of these shades. The closest shade out of all of these is Pink Pumpkin, but after letting the color develop a little bit, you can kind of see better the difference. Pink Pumpkin is actually a little bit more pink, and Papaya Jam still has more orange. Okay, so I finally finished up all the swatches and comparisons. I hope that was helpful to you guys. Now I'm just gonna wrap up my final thoughts really quickly. So first we have the palette, which is number 09 Dreamy Lilac Garden. I would say this is a unique addition to ROM&ND's line. They haven't had a muted cool tone palette that's this cool toned, so I think this was a really good addition. It kind of rounds out their brand's eyeshadow palettes, and also even among like the cool tone muted mauve palettes, it's quite unique in terms of how purple the undertone is without being like a straight up purple palette, if that makes sense. The only thing I would say is that I would only recommend this to, first of all, like light to medium skin tones. I feel like if you're deeper than a medium skin tone, you won't like this palette because it is quite light, even though it's not as light as some of their other like pastel palettes or pastel palettes in K-beauty in general. Like a lot of those run very, very light that only like light skin tones can wear them. So this has like, you know, some more contouring shades down here, but at the same time, more than half of the palette is light. It's not going to be the most versatile palette in that way. The other thing is like you have to really like subtle makeup. Not necessarily like no makeup, but more like you don't want your eyeshadows to like stand out too much. You don't want like really glamorous glitters or really like flashy shades or anything like that, then I think you'll like this palette. But if you're like me and you like more pop to your shimmers and glitter, because like I had to go in and add some of the extra glitter on my Eggo Cell, I feel like it's not the best palette for you because at least for me it's just not glittery and glam enough, but I think it's really nice for everyday use. Also, if you like work in an office or something and you can't have your makeup be too much, this is like a really easy palette to do that with. And I think cool tone people who have been having trouble like finding a good cool tone everyday palette will really like this one. Yeah, in terms of the quality, I really like the mattes. They're very like creamy, silky smooth, but I would say the shimmers are a little bit lackluster to me. But again, I think if you like the subtle look, you'll like these. Okay, then onto the lip shades. I actually love all three of these Dewyful water tint shades. As for the formula, I just want to briefly describe that it's like this light gel-like consistency. It's also quite sheer. It's more sheer than the Juicy Lasting tints if you're familiar with those. Also not sticky at all. If you only had to pick one, I would highly recommend Lilac Cream. I think it's such a gorgeous color. It's also very unique. It's just like the perfect light mauve nude that I've never seen before. But Murmur Pink and Cotton Melba are also really pretty. I actually really like Cotton Melba in terms of being a warm tone shade. They're super flattering, like kind of milky shades, but they're not too milky white on the lips. And then onto the two new Juicy Lasting tints. So I actually think I like Papaya Jam more. It may not be super unique, but I like the mixture of orange and pink that this is. I just really enjoy that this one is not too orange. The Bare Fig one honestly is not my favorite because it's very purple. So if you're into purple lips or purple makeup in general, I think you'll really like this. It's gonna be pretty dependent on your coloring, I feel like, because it pulls so purple. I think on warm tone people it's not gonna be the most flattering. I consider myself more of like a neutral person. Like I feel like I can wear both warm and cool. And even on me, it's very cool. And as you saw in the comparisons, it's more purple than basically all of the other like berry and plum shades that I have. But in terms of the formula, it's a very long lasting glossy tint. It's also more opaque than the Dewyful water tints that I just mentioned. So it's gonna give you that like full on pigment if you like that, or if you like wanna cover up your lip color more. And they're a long time staple in my collection, so I love this formula. Highly recommend it if you're looking to get into K-beauty lip tints and you haven't like gotten any yet. I like that there's one warm tone and one cool tone, so you can pick and choose. So yeah, that's about all my thoughts on this collection. Overall, I really like it. I also really like the concept, because as you can see, the packaging is like this banana milk shade. So cute, so pretty. I like that all the tones are kind of more on the milky light side, but they're not too pastel and too white, because a lot of Korean makeup, when they go pastel, they go like very white. Especially the lips, I feel like they're pretty versatile, and because they're sheer, they'll kind of like mesh with your skin coloring better. Even though some of these have like a little bit of white in the color, I feel like they're not too milky. I didn't see any separating into lines like you can sometimes get with really light nude shades. That doesn't happen with these. So yeah, that's about all my thoughts for today. I hope all my try-on swatches and comparisons for you guys were helpful. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you like this video, and comment and subscribe down below if you want to see more content like this, because it really helps out my channel and it would really mean a lot to me. And I'll see you all in my next video. Bye!